Heart Rango says, people are going to be pretty mad at us after this episode, so it begins. I mean, it's not that hard to make a TSM fan mad, is it? Hey everyone, welcome to dGon versus commenters. We're going over your comments from Season 3, Episode 8 of Facecheck. One thing that we did was we asked a lot of you at home what your favorite builds were that were a little bit off the beaten path because Dom talked about I'm a cutie pie and hobo deer. So we're taking a look at a lot of those. First up, Rune Nielsen, Creationist Kazakhs. No evolutions for me. Sounds about right. It's like my solo key junglers. Lord GVH says, I like to play unfunded Heimerdinger. He can't afford to continue to make turrets, so instead he does everything on his own. But every kill, he scrounges up enough funds to build one turret. I mean, those turrets are expensive. Akiyosin says, I only play melee Orianna by not putting points in Q. It just seems more of a skillful check. That's right, you gotta make sure your positioning is good, and you always love a sombrero. Wow, this name isn't nice. Screw Jacob Markstrom, whatever. Solo Q Callista. I sell my Black Spear every game because my low elo teammates aren't worth binding to. That's the play. That's actually one that I do. I didn't know it had a name. Also, thanks Jacob Markstrom. You've always been a big supporter. All right, now into the meat and potatoes of something that actually we talked about in the show. And M2G said, I think both arguments have merits, and this is regarding conversations about shifting formats. I watched Sword Art talking about best of ones, and it got me thinking about a team comp that allows for mistakes, especially in NA, where it looks like every game is free scale, so laning phase isn't that important. But hey, I'm far from pro, so it would be nice to listen to their opinion on this perspective. Okay, first up, don't caveat your opinion like, oh yeah, but I'm a nobody, so what I just said was just wasted space. Otherwise, you just wasted space. Like, you have an opinion, just dish it out there. You watch the interview with Sword Art, he says they want a composition that allows for mistakes. That's fine. That is, you know that when you come to Facecheck though, that is rarely the type of analysis you're gonna get. We're trying to get to what peak play looks like and what removing mistakes because you want to hold your players to that standard. And so that's why LS will analyze that way. That's why Dom will analyze that way. And so if you're planning for struggling there, that's where it starts to suffer a little bit, I think, right? In the composition, sure, you can build that in, but during the play of that composition, did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish? I think those are two different things. And so I think Sword Art saying that having that ability to come back from mistakes because each game is more important in best of ones, and you don't have the ability to say, hey, we need to play this perfectly to win. And if we don't, we can at least fall back into, games 2 and 3 or 2, 3, 4, 5 later on. I think that's why he's saying that, and that makes sense to me, but when we're breaking things down, we're assuming that they can play that to the best of their abilities. We don't have any other information otherwise. All right, these two comments were about the draft between TSM and Cloud9, and Keith Ramasani said, I wouldn't say TSM and Cloud9 were a draft gap, but TSM's comp was easier to play, which allowed them to come back. And the Nephilim 4826 said, TSM versus C9, where C9 gets a lead and then throws. Then you see G2 versus Rogue, where G2 gets a lead, then proceeds to choke Rogue out all over the map. I like these two comments kind of together, right? Because I'll start with the Nephilims. Not every team is able to do that. And it's cool to see that, hey, G2, one of the best in the world, they know how to close games out when they get a lead. Whereas Cloud9, one of the best teams in North America, still learning that process. And again, still newer roster. You're still trying to figure out how to work around perks and with Fudge in the top lane, what his role is. But I don't think it's fair to say, hey, because the best team in EU does this in this one situation, and NA doesn't do this in this one situation, EU versus NA, right? We were taking a look at a holistic approach of how these teams work out. And so to be like, yeah, G2 is always just straight up better than Cloud9 at every turn, like, I don't think that's the play there, right? Be more like analytical and don't just use one specific example and then extrapolate, and that's why. It doesn't work out that way. And Keith with the Cloud9 draft, again, we kind of hit on it in the comment earlier. TSM's draft is easier to play. Cloud9 is playing a harder draft, and that prepares them for international play a little bit more. You can intentionally see when a team is playing something where they need to pound the early game and then snowball later, which is, they did the first part, right? They destroyed in the early game, snowball later, so that they can practice playing from ahead because they want to try and get ahead, because this is a team with firepower, one of the few teams in North America with firepower that could theoretically get ahead on the world stage. When you look at the caliber of players in each role, they need to know how to do that. And so if you are putting yourself in a tougher draft to learn how to do that, I think that makes more sense. So yes, TSM gets the win, which is great. Feels kind of like a big throw from Cloud9, which it was, but they learned now where they have teaching points to go back to in their reviews. And when they get to that world stage, whether it's at MSI or whether it's, you know, at Worlds itself, on like, hey, this is what we learned from that match in TSM. There's how we can learn from it. Michelle Cuesmick said, I cried hearing Dom talk about I'm a cutie pie and Udyr back in the day. For sure. And that's, again, one of the things I love about this show. A wealth of experiences. You guys get to see the matches on stage, maybe some of the behind the scenes stuff, maybe some of the stream stuff, but there's no way you can know like the solo queue history of what they've gone through. And so whenever Dom's able to pull out stories like that, very, very entertaining. I was dying too, as you could see during the video. All right, so we got 2 complaints from some of y'all fans out there, and that's what this space is for. Let's figure it out. First up, Cody Carroll says, my only complaint is that this podcast isn't 4 hours long with drugs and VOD reviews. Hey, look, man, we like to party, but we don't like to party that long and party that hard. So no drugs and only an hour and a half to 2 hours pending our schedules. You know what I mean? The second one is Pavan Go. Pavan Go? Pavan Go. You'll tell me if I got it right later. My only complaint is that this podcast isn't done more often. Well, again, just like partying, if you do it too much, you kind of lose yourself there. And let me tell you, me, Dom, and LS go to a place every time we go to Facecheck, and we have to reel ourselves in throughout the week so that we can get ready for the next one. All right. Maurice B gave us, I'd love a 40-minute explanation on why something is the way that it is. Mostly because it's super educational to understand your thought process. And I think in the last episode we hit on it, why we don't always do that. It's because any anonymous Joe Schmo can show up, just say, no, you're wrong, and then disappear. Whereas Dom, LS, myself all have to answer for it, and it takes a lot of effort. And as much as you don't want one naysayer to blah, 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 to counter you for no reason, it is taxing, it's tiring. And especially for those 2 guys, they've had a lot of critics of how they live their life, how they do things. So anytime you have the opportunity to, always send them the support. You see, Dom's been really happy lately. So keep doing what you're doing. Okay, back to your weirdest champs, themed champs, whatever, champ variations. Starting off with Haruhiro Grimgar. Popcorn Zillion. Basically, full attack speed, crit build. Enjoy eating some popcorn IRL as it flies across the stream. Because every auto attack that Zillion throws looks like a little piece of popcorn. That's cute. And you know what? That might actually work, right? You can reposition pretty quickly. You have CC if you land the bombs. In case you make a boneheaded attack carry mistake, you can ult yourself. Like, maybe not too bad. Give it a try. All right, next up, Detached Yumi Carry. No attaching, we are strong, independent kittens. Make sure to practice that one only in your non-ranked games. Antonin Bouliard says, Hobo Deer and True Kane have nothing on River Shen. Damn right, Shen's in the river, making sure the Scuttle Crab and one objective is theirs and theirs alone. All right, Jacob Dozier trying to hold me accountable, saying, didn't y'all say you're gonna do a mid and jungle tier list? Well, we wanted to hold off on that one just because of the blowback from all that back and forth. LS had a lot of people coming into a stream, so he's like, yeah, you know what? Let's just wait a week and get that to you. Don't worry. Tier lists aren't going anywhere here for Facecheck. We'll have one for you next week. Aaron Justin Anderson says, I would love to see a Facecheck co-stream. Maybe that's something that we can make happen very, very soon. Thanks for all the comments. Make sure if we missed anything, hit us in the comments below and check out Facecheck next week.